It is a summer afternoon, a little over 2,100 years ago in southern China. In a great house near the city of Changsha, an aging noblewoman reclines on silk cushions, one of the wealthiest women in the empire. A servant kneels and offers her a plate of sweet, ripe melon. She takes it, but what nobody in that room knows is that she has less than 3 hours left to live. Her death should have been the end of the story. A funeral, a tomb, and then the forgetting that swallows every life. Dynasties rose and fell above her. For 21 centuries, the earth kept her. Then, in December of 1971, construction workers digging an air raid shelter into a hillside outside Changsha drove their tools into something hollow, and the hillside hissed back. Gas escaped from the ground, and according to the men who were there, when a flame touched it, the air itself caught fire and burned blue. What archaeologists found beneath that hill changed history. Not a skeleton, not a shriveled mummy, a woman with soft skin, her own hair, eyelashes, whose arms and legs could still bend. This is the story of Xin Zhui, the Lady Dai, the best preserved human body ever discovered anywhere on Earth, from any age. Science would eventually reconstruct her final afternoon almost to the hour. But even then, one question remained unanswered. To understand what was found inside the tomb, you first have to understand the woman who was sealed inside it. In 206 BC, the Han Dynasty rose from the wreckage of civil war and began building one of the great empires of the ancient world. Far to the south, on the empire's humid frontier, lay the kingdom of Changsha. Rice paddies, wet heat, rivers thick with silt. The kingdom's chancellor was a man named Li Kang, the Marquis of Dai, and his wife was a woman named Xin Zhui. We know almost nothing about her thoughts. No diary survives, no letters. History wrote down her husband's titles and left her a name and a rank, Lady Dai. But her possessions tell us exactly how she lived. More than 100 silk garments, 182 pieces of lacquerware, each worth more than a laborer earned in years, private musicians, and a kitchen that served the kinds of meat reserved for royalty. She lived, in other words, magnificently, and her body paid for every year of it. Because while history kept no record of Lady Dai's daily life, her body kept its own. Every rich meal, every year without labor, every worm in the paddy water, all of it was being written down in her arteries, her organs, and her bones. A private archive no one would ever read, or so she would have believed. In 186 BC, her husband Li Kang died and the marquisate passed on. Some years later, she buried a young man, almost certainly her son dead around 168 BC, barely in his 30s. She outlived them both, a widow in a great house growing old, growing ill, attended by everyone, and accompanied by no one. And then, at around 50 years of age, on a summer afternoon it was her turn. What happened next was not a burial, it was an act of engineering. At a place called Mawangdui, just outside Changsha, her household dug a pit into the hill straight down, deeper than a 4-story building. At the bottom they built her a home, 4 coffins, nested one inside another like a puzzle. The outer ones painted black and crimson, swarming with cloud patterns, serpents and underworld guardians. Inside the innermost coffin, Lady Dai was wrapped in 20 layers of fine clothing, bound tight with silk ribbons. Over her, a painted silk banner in the shape of a T, showing her rising, cane in hand, toward the world of the immortals. And around her, everything a noblewoman's afterlife could need. More than 1,400 objects, lacquered cups, 162 carved wooden servants, and over 150 dishes of real food, sealed beside her for eternity. Now pay attention to what they did next, because this is the part that beat the pharaohs. The Egyptians preserved their dead by force. They cut out the organs, dried the flesh, soaked it in resin. The Han did none of that. No embalming, no mummification. Her family wasn't trying to preserve a corpse. They were trying to seal a household. So they surrounded the chamber with roughly 5 tons of charcoal to drink up every drop of moisture. Around the charcoal, a thick wall of white kaolin clay so dense that air itself could not pass. And above it all, meter after meter of pounded earth. No air, no water, no light, no change. In trying to build her a home for the next world, they had accidentally built the most perfect time capsule in human history. And then, nothing. For 2,100 years, nothing. The Han fell, the Tang rose, The Ming built their forbidden city. The hill kept its secret until the winter of 1971. It is December 1971. China is digging. Fear of war has sent whole cities burrowing underground, carving air raid shelters into every hillside. Outside Changsha, workers from a nearby hospital are cutting a tunnel into a mound the locals call Mawangdui, the saddle of the king's horse. And the ground exhales. Gas hisses from the soil, and the story goes that when a worker's flame met it, it burned an eerie blue. The workers had heard the old name for lights like that, fire of the ghosts. Now, we need to be careful here. The blue flame comes down to us from retellings and details vary between accounts. But what the gas meant is beyond dispute, and it electrified the archaeologists who heard of it. Escaping gas meant a sealed void. Something under that hill had been shut so tight, it still held its own atmosphere. In January of 1972, the excavation began. Archaeologists, helped by hundreds of local students, peeled the hill open layer by layer, down through the earth, down through the white clay, down through the charcoal, still dry after 2 millennia, and then the chamber. Intact, untouched, no looter had ever reached it. One by one, the 4 coffins were opened, painted lid after painted lid, until only the last one remained, and inside it, a bundle of silk, bound with ribbons, soaked in a strange, clear liquid. They unwrapped her slowly, 1 layer, 5, 10, 20, and then they stopped talking. Her skin was soft. Her own black hair lay on her head. Her eyelashes were intact. The fine hairs in her nose were intact. When they pressed her flesh, it sprang back. When they moved her arms and legs, the joints still bent. She did not look 2,000 years old. She looked days old. News of the discovery detonated across China and then across the world. Nothing like her had ever been found. The best preserved mummy in the world, except she wasn't really a mummy at all. She was simply a body the earth had refused to take. You do not excavate a body like this. You examine it. On December 14th, 1972, in front of cameras and a room full of specialists, doctors did something no one in history had ever done. They performed a modern autopsy on a patient who had been dead for 2,100 years. Understand what a preserved body means to science. Bones can tell you how someone lived, but soft tissue, organs, vessels, blood, is a complete biological archive. The doctors weren't opening a corpse, they were opening a record. The first findings made them pause. Her organs were all present, intact, in place. Her blood vessels were whole, and inside her veins there was still blood, enough to test. Type A. A blood type from a woman born while Rome and Carthage were still fighting for the Mediterranean. Then they looked closer, and Lady Dai began to give up her secrets one by one. Her arteries were narrowed and hardened, advanced heart disease. Her coronary vessels showed thrombosis, high blood pressure, diabetes, liver disease, gallstones, a compressed spinal disc that would have made her final years painful. And inside her, the parasites of the southern rice country, schistosomiasis, the worm of the paddy fields. Think about that list for a moment. Heart disease, diabetes, hypertension. These are the diseases of our world, the diseases of excess. And here they were, fully formed, in a woman born 22 centuries ago. Lady Dai is the oldest known patient of the diseases that now kill more humans than any other. Her luxury hadn't just decorated her life, it had ended it. And then came the most important discovery. In her stomach, her esophagus, and her intestines, the doctors counted them one by one, more than 130 melon seeds, undigested. Digestion has a clock. Food passes from the stomach within hours. For the seeds to still be there untouched, Lady Dai must have died within 2 to 3 hours of eating that melon. And since melons ripen in the southern summer, science can even name the season. The seeds are a clock, frozen at the moment of her death. A hot summer afternoon, a plate of ripe melon. And then, within hours, a catastrophic failure of her ruined heart. The Lady Dai died of a heart attack on a summer afternoon, 2,100 years before medicine could name the disease that killed her. The autopsy reconstructed the last afternoon of a woman who died before the Roman Empire existed, almost to the hour, but it could not answer the question that mattered most. Not how she died, why she was still here. Here is where science reaches its limit. When the innermost coffin was opened, Lady Dai lay partly submerged in a clear liquid. which darkened when it met the air. Analysis found it slightly acidic with traces of magnesium. Was it an ancient preservative? Some lost embalming bath the hand took to their graves? Was it groundwater that seeped in? Or was it her? Many scientists believe the fluid may have come from the body itself, condensed over centuries in that sealed, cold dark. The honest answer is, we don't know. 50 years of study, and the world's best scientists cannot fully explain her and cannot replicate what that tomb did. What we do know is what her family built. The depth kept her cool. 5 tons of charcoal kept her dry. The clay kept out the air. The silk kept out everything else. Whatever bacteria were sealed in with her died in the airless dark, and after that, there was simply nothing left in that chamber that could harm her. Not even time. At the start, I told you that even science left one question unanswered. This is it. And maybe that is the strangest part of this story. The Egyptians tried harder than any civilization on Earth to defeat death. They built mountains. They invented embalming. And after 2,000 years, their kings are leather and bone. Lady Dai's family wasn't trying to preserve her at all. They were saying goodbye. The pharaohs built for eternity and got dust. Her family built her a home and got eternity by accident. Today, Xin Zhui lies in the Hunan Museum, in a chamber built to imitate the tomb that kept her, studied, monitored, and never fully explained. Almost nothing of her voice survives. No letters, no portraits from life. History recorded her husband's titles and forgot the woman, like it forgets almost every woman. And then the earth handed her back, so perfectly kept that scientists could read her blood, her illnesses, and her last afternoon of sweet melon. For 2,100 years, the world forgot her name. Now she is the one human being the earth refused to take. If you're the kind of person who thinks the most interesting history is the history they never taught you, we've only just scratched the surface. Subscribe and tell us in the comments which buried story we should open next. We read every single one.